Hello friends, now that we have completed our discussion on public sector and private sector in India, it is time for us to move on to cooperatives and discuss a little bit about the cooperative sector in India. So should we begin our discussion with a brief understanding of what cooperatives are? As you can see here in this particular picture, some people are coming together in some kind of a joint endeavor for the purpose of reaching a particular goal, reaching a goal which is cherished by all the members. So this is what basically is the main idea behind cooperatives. In cooperatives, what happens is, first thing, it is basically a voluntary association of persons, which means the members who are there in the cooperatives, they organize themselves into such a group voluntarily. It is not mandated by the government. They do it because they feel like doing it. So it is a voluntary association of persons, a voluntary endeavor on the part of the members. Secondly, cooperatives are those organizations which basically are formed by people coming together, and that is why they are also owned by these people who are also the members of the cooperatives. So basically, some people come together to form cooperatives. They form cooperatives and then they also partake in the ownership of the cooperatives. So the cooperative is jointly owned by the members which are there in the cooperative. Then as far as the functioning is concerned, it is democratic. What do we mean by this? This means that whatever decisions have to be taken, they are taken democratically, which means many a times there might also be voting to decide a particular course of action, and depending on which particular course of action is favored by a majority, the decision is then taken. So basically the decision making is democratic in cooperatives. Then as far as the objective behind setting up cooperative is concerned, as I've already said, they are set up for some common goals which are common to all the members. So that is why these members have come together to form the cooperative. So the cooperatives aspire to achieve some common economic goals. And the problem solving is collective, which means whenever there's a problem, there is an issue which is coming up, it is for all the members of the cooperative, the whole cooperative, to tackle that particular issue, to solve that particular problem. So these are some of the striking characteristics of a cooperative organization. It is formed by some people coming together. People come together for a particular purpose, which is the purpose that is cherished by everybody in the cooperative. And whenever some decision has to be taken, it is taken democratically, and the problem solving is again requires the contribution of every single member in the cooperative. Now let us talk a little bit about the cooperative sector here in India. You would find that there are different types of cooperatives here in India. I'll be discussing some of these prominent types in brief. For example, one is the agricultural cooperative. So you can understand why these kind of cooperatives are set up. Basically, they are into some kind of activity which is closely related to agriculture. It may be agriculture itself, it could be activities related to agriculture, which means it could be some kind of retailing of agriculture produce. It could be agriculture allied activities like selling of fruits and vegetables, like trying to sell the milk obtained from the cattle. So agricultural cooperatives generally are set up for these kind of purposes. One example is cooperative sugar mill in Maharashtra. So in Maharashtra, which is apart from UP, the largest producer of sugar in India, you can find cooperative sugar mills. They have been set up by big farmers, and some middle income farmers are also involved, and they have set up cooperative sugar mills so that whatever Maharashtra is very rich as far as the sugarcane production is concerned. There is a lot of sugarcane production there. So the basic objective was to process that sugarcane into sugar and then sell it in the open markets and earn profit for the members of the cooperative society. So that is why these kind of cooperative sugar mills were set up in Maharashtra, and these are still very popular there in Maharashtra. Then another example is of the farmer cooperatives, wherein many times farmers pool in their fruits and vegetable produce and then sell it in the market. So what basically farmers do in a particular area, let us say for example, the farmers would come together, form a cooperative, pool in whatever they have produced in their fields and then sell that particular product in the market as one single unit. So what basically happens is, earlier the farmers were selling these products that they were producing in the fields individually. So in a way, every single farmer was competing with every other farmer. So there was a lot of competition and farmers were undercutting each other in terms of prices, and naturally farmers were not able to gain a lot from their produce. So now that they have come together and they are selling as one single unit rather than every single farmer selling individually, so they sell as one single unit, they are able to bargain for higher prices. Not only this, they are also able to obtain higher prices, as I said, from the buyers, and there are less chances of them being exploited by the buyers or the intermediaries, because now they have formed themselves into one particular unit, into one particular cooperative. So that is the main objective behind these kind of agricultural cooperatives. Then we have the dairy cooperatives. For example, a very prominent example is Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, GCMMF, which you more commonly know as the Amul brand. Amul basically is the brand which is basically used to sell the products which are produced by this particular Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation. Basically, this is a cooperative organization in which lakhs and lakhs of farmers are members, and all the farmers, they basically sell their milk to the cooperative of which they are a part, and then the cooperative on their behalf pools all such milk which gets collected from different farmers, different villages and different districts, and then sell it under the Amul brand. So this way the cooperative is able to get better prices for the milk that it is selling in the market. Secondly, there is no fragmentation of market. Farmers are not selling individually, so there is no undercutting each other and there is less competition, and naturally when all the farmers are coming together, they can bargain for higher prices from the market. Plus, since now it is a big cooperative, there are so many villages which are part of this particular cooperative. Farmers from villages and districts, they are part of this cooperative, so naturally they are also able to invest a lot more money in researching for better kind of technology, or for better kind of products, or for tastier and healthier products. They are able to employ the best of the technology, and that is why the Amul brand that they bring to the market is a very, very popular brand among the customers. So just because it's a large cooperative, it can also invest a lot in improving its technology, improving its processes, and improving the quality of its product. So these kind of cooperatives are also to be found in India, dairy cooperatives, basically to sell the dairy items, specifically milk and cheese and items like that. Again, in Uttarakhand also, you know about the Aanchal. Again, now Aanchal is again the brand name. So you can find out, you can have a look at the packaging, the milk packaging that they employ. The Aanchal employs a particular kind of milk packaging. If you have a look at it, you'll find out the name of the cooperative federation which is behind the Aanchal brand. So they are another example of a dairy cooperative. So there are so many dairy cooperatives here in India. Then we have banking cooperatives. One example that probably you would be easily able to think of is the Pithoragarh Champawat Urban Cooperative Bank. So this is another example. Then we have got buyer cooperatives. Now these are of course they're there in India also, but the number would be much less than the agriculture or the dairy cooperatives. Buyer cooperatives are basically what? See, some of the buyers, let's say there are 1000 2000 buyers, and they are all, let's say, part of the same company. Let us say that they are working in the same company. So let us say that there is a company in which around 1000 2000 people are employed, and they are, of course, they require a lot of things for their daily needs. So one option is for them to go to the market individually, as a single individual or as a single household or a family, and then purchase from the market. The other option is that all the buyers can pool in their purchases, they can club their purchases, and then they start buying in bulk. So rather than buying, let's say, soaps and shampoos individually or as a single household, what they've done is they've pooled their requirements for a particular period of time, maybe for a month or maybe for a 6-month period or maybe for the whole year, and then they are buying in bulk from the suppliers. Now because they are able to buy in the bulk from the suppliers, what will happen is they will be able to get a bulk discount. Naturally they are purchasing in huge quantities, so naturally they would be able to get a discount, they would be able to bargain for lower prices, and these lower prices, the money that is saved by through the bulk discount, that saving is passed on to the members of these kind of buyer cooperatives. So this is the whole idea behind the buyer cooperatives. A number of buyers coming together so that they can bargain for lower prices, and so that the individual expenditure on the consumption items reduces. So that is the basic idea behind buyer cooperatives, and such buyer cooperatives are being run by some of the firms also, in which, again, as I mentioned in my example, there are a lot of employees who work and they buy a lot of items for their household needs. So in such companies, these kind of cooperatives are formed by the employees also. Then we have got credit cooperatives. Again, credit cooperative is some kind of a cooperative in which the credit needs of the members are catered to. For example, I'll give you a very crude example. Let us say some 15 to 20 villages in a particular block have come together and they've formed a credit cooperative society. So what will happen is everybody will pool in some resources. So everybody will chip in with some money that they have saved. So let us say everybody chips in, and this would be provided for in the rules and regulations of the cooperative in the form of membership fee. So everybody will have to pay a membership fee of, let's say, rupees 15 per month, or rupees 100 per month, or rupees 200 per month. And now, out of these people who have formed the cooperative, some of the people might require credit. They may be purchasing some consumer durable item, or they might be having a particular function in the family. There might be marriages, there might be births taking place. So naturally these kind of people would require some credit. So rather than going to a bank, they can go to their own credit cooperative society, avail the loan facility from the credit cooperative society, and then return the loan whenever they are capable of doing that, along of course with the interest. So this is how the credit cooperative societies, credit cooperatives work here in India. So these are also to be found in many places. Now let us talk about the role of cooperative sector as far as Indian economy is concerned. Number one, it provides credit to members not served by public and private sector. So there are so many people, like in the example that I recently just took in the last slide. There are people who may not be considered worthy enough to be provided loan, to be extended loan facility. They might be not having assets to obtain credit. Based on the assets, only the banks at times provide loans. So the assets have to be mortgaged, which you call the security. So they simply do not have any assets to be provided to the bank as security, and so the banks decline. The PSU banks generally decline to serve them. Likewise happens with the private sector banks and the non-banking financial companies, which are almost all in the private sector. So they are not able to fulfill their credit needs, and for such people, cooperative credit societies, credit cooperatives are of great use. They can avail loans from these cooperative credit societies or credit cooperatives. Then another role that is performed by these kind of cooperatives is pooling of resources. See, we talked about the members of a particular cooperative availing loan from the cooperative, but then How does the cooperative manage to have these kind of funds for funds through which they are providing loans to the members? Actually what happens is, as I've just now mentioned in the last slide also, the members would be paying a membership fee, and there would be maybe a monthly kind of membership fee which would be paid by the members. The members can also save whatever little they are saving, and they can deposit it with the credit cooperative, and that fund which thus gets collected would then be used for providing credit services to those members of the credit cooperative who require loans and who require credit. So this is how pooling of resources basically happens. Pooling of resources also happens in agriculture also. For example, there is a concept of cooperative farming wherein people pool in their resources. So let us say there are 5 farmers, they are all very small. However, they need to use a tractor to tend to their fields, to sow seeds or to plow the field. But naturally, since their land holding size is very small, it is just not viable for them to have a tractor. So what will they do? They will come up, they will pool up their land and pool up their resources. They might pool in their money to buy a tractor, and that tractor would now be used to plow the whole land holding. It would not only be plowing a particular farmer's fields, it would be plowing the whole field, the whole pool of land that is now available, because all the 5 farmers have come together. And now the 5 farmers can also buy a tractor, because up till now, till the point of time they were working as individual farmers and they were only tending to their own field, it would have been very unviable for them to purchase a tractor or maybe to purchase these kind of agricultural equipments. But now since they have pooled up their land, the land size is also very large. Now the land size become large, and they are joint partners of that particular land, they are joint owners of that particular land. So now they can, even if they buy a particular tractor, it is going to be a viable thing for them. So this is how pooling of resources happens in cooperative sector. Then promoting thrift among members. Naturally, I told you about the credit cooperatives wherein credit is extended to the members. So in these kind of credit cooperative societies, the members also pay some membership fee, or they also deposit their savings. So this way cooperative sector is also promoting thrift. Thrift is economizing. Thrift is basically about saving a little bit of money. So basically cooperative sector also promotes saving by its members. Then there is an increase in risk taking and entrepreneurial behavior in a cooperative. See, Indian mindset and Indian psychology, it has been researched by so many psychologists, and it has been found that Indian psychology is basically risk averse. We are afraid of taking risk. We are very risk averse. And it has also been found to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be a moderate risk taker. You cannot be an extreme risk taker. You will have to be a moderate risk taker. You neither can be an extreme risk taker nor you can be risk averse. You have to be somewhere in between, which is moderate risk taker, thinking through and then deciding whether to take a risk or not. So moderate risk taking has been correlated with entrepreneurial behavior and entrepreneurial success. Now since the farmers here, since the people in India are generally less risk taking, they are risk averse, they simply are not suitable for entrepreneurial adventures. They simply cannot be good entrepreneurs, and I'm talking in general. I'm not talking about some exceptional cases. I'm talking about this particular aspect in general. So generally what will happen is Indian would be less keen to set up some entrepreneurial venture, and they are less likely to succeed in that venture just because they are risk averse. They simply don't want to take risk. But when people come together in a group, their risk propensity increases, their likelihood of risk taking increases. For example, if you are, suppose somebody asks you that you have to go to a forest at the dead of the night, you would never be ready to do that. But however, if there are 15-20 friends of yours and all of you have decided that we'll all go together as a group, then you would be ready with it. You would still be afraid, but then you would be more likely to take these kind of risks just because you are part of a group. So naturally, as far as human beings are concerned, when they are in group, their risk taking behavior increases. Now, what implication does this particular fact has for the Indian mindset? Our mindset is risk averse. We simply don't want to take risks. But when we form a group, our risk taking capacity increases, and from a risk averse individual we become a moderate risk taker, which is highly correlated with entrepreneurial behavior and entrepreneurial success. So when people come together to form cooperative, they tend to take higher risks. In our case, we earlier never used to take risks, so now we start taking more risk and we become a moderate risk taker, and by taking moderate risk we are more likely to succeed in our entrepreneurial venture. So this is another role which is played by the cooperative sector. An individual may not be a successful entrepreneur, but when you form a group, then the likelihood of success increases. So this is another contribution of the cooperative sector. Then again, cooperative sector helps diversify income sources of poor families. For example, there are people who form cooperatives to sell milk that they produce in their home. For example, in farming families, you find that apart from agriculture, they are also involved in these kind of allied activities. For example, they rear cattle and sell their milk in the market. So now, if they form some kind of a cooperative to sell their milk in the market, this will help them diversify their sources of income. They are now not only dependent on agriculture, but they are also earning their money from the sale of the milk in the market. So this is a welcome diversification, because if in a particular year the crop fails because of adverse weather conditions, then at least they can earn something from the retail of milk through the cooperative society. So this way they would still be able to survive despite the crops failing. So that is why diversification of income source is very, very important for poor families. Now again, cooperatives, when they are formed, they also tend to market their products in a far better manner than a single individual. So I talked about the farmer cooperatives which are formed to sell fruits and vegetables. So when they come together and they sell their produce as one single bulk, when the farmers come together, they club their produce, they club their fruits and vegetables, and they sell it as one single bulk. Then naturally they would also have resources to market their products better. They may come up with some kind of a brand name for their products and start selling the products in the market. So they may also be able to access those markets which are far from their villages, but where the demand is much higher. So this kind of marketing of products is also possible in the cooperative sector, which is otherwise not possible for a single individual when he is all alone, because he simply cannot invest in marketing his products. But when there is a cooperative formed and the cooperative attains some kind of a volume, there are a lot of products to be sold in the market. The cooperative can also invest in marketing the products and branding the products. This will increase the demand of the products in the market, and the members of the cooperative would be able to benefit from this. Again, since the members of the cooperative are able to benefit from this, they would certainly be able to ensure better returns for the members. So the members would be able to get better returns for their produce. I talked about this while I was talking about the sugar mills in Maharashtra, cooperative sugar mills. So cooperative sugar mills were basically formed by some large farmers. Some of these relatively middle income farmers were also involved, and by setting up the mill, they were able to produce their own sugarcane and that of the other farmers in the vicinity into sugar, and then they were able to have a greater say over the prices at which the sugar would be sold in the market. So this ensured better returns for them. Again, this particular role of bulk purchase of inputs at discounted rates for members, this is an element of agricultural cooperatives. What happens in agricultural cooperatives? Many a times they are basically, the first objective that they serve is to pool in the produce of the different members, of the different farmers who are members of the cooperative, and then sell the produce as one single whole, as one single bulk. So naturally they help the members earn more for their produce, that is fine. But what is the second objective? Many a times these kind of agricultural cooperatives, they also do what? They also purchase the agricultural inputs in bulk for all their members. So rather than every single farmer buying inputs like seeds and fertilizers and pesticides from the market on his own individually, what happens is all the farmers who are members of the cooperative, they pool in their demand, they pool in their requirements, and then the whole bulk is purchased by the cooperative. Since the bulk buying happens, the cooperative is able to bargain for lower prices, and the farmers have access to these kind of agricultural input at much lower prices. So many a times bulk purchase of inputs at discounted rate also happens, and it is one of the functions which is also performed by many of the agricultural cooperatives. It is very similar to what the buyer cooperatives do. They also purchase in bulk so that they can pass on the benefit of this bulk buying. They can pass on the cost saving to the members. Likewise happens in the case of agriculture cooperatives, where also bulk buying of input means less prices for inputs, and the saving can be passed on to the farmers who are members of the cooperative. So these are some of the roles that are played by the cooperatives. Let us discuss a little bit about the problems which the cooperative sector has been facing in India. What are the issues which are there, which have limited the growth of the cooperative movement in India and limited the growth of cooperative sector in India? So the first problem, which is a big problem with most of the cooperatives, is Amul is just one example. It's probably an exception. There are so many such cooperatives which are just exception. Most of the cooperatives, their scope of operations, their scale of operations is very, very small. And since their scale of operations is very small, their turnover is also much less, and simply they are not viable. Their scale of operation is very small. They might not be selling too much. They might only be retailing a small volume of products, and that is why their overall turnover in the year is much less, which makes them unviable. They are not able to survive for long, or they are not able to perform successfully for long, just because the scale of operations is very, very small. Then the main issue that the cooperatives generally face is basically lack of skilled manpower. See, when a lot of people come together to form a cooperative and everybody is chipping in with his resources, there is some membership also, and then some activities are being undertaken by the cooperative. So the cooperative will need to, let's say, maintain some kind of account. So you need somebody who has a background in accounting, but these cooperatives generally do not have people who have a background in accounting. And if they want to recruit somebody who can provide that kind of service to them, they simply do not have resources to do that. So this is one major issue. Likewise, for example, to plan their operations efficiently, they need somebody who is background in, let's say in operations management. So however, they are not able to access this kind of manpower simply because they are not able to pay to them. They do not have sufficient money to pay to these kind of skilled personnel, and that is why they don't hire them. And among them, they do not have somebody who has this kind of expertise, because of which they are not able to perform very, very efficiently. Like I said, lack of marketing and accountancy is against. They do not have people who are trained in marketing. If they want to hire from an management institute like ours, they would not be able to, because they simply would not be having the money to provide salaries to such kind of skilled management personnel or such kind of skilled marketing personnel. So this is one major issue, lack of professional management because of this. So what happens is the cooperative is managed by the members, though if they can have somebody with a professional training, with a training in, let's say, management, that particular person can manage manage the cooperative better, but they simply cannot hire such people. Again, the quality of products which are produced in cooperative sector is much inferior, and specifically when compared to other brands which are there in the market. You compare the namkeens which are being produced by the cooperative sector here in Pithoragarh, Uttarakhand. You compare the quality of products of fruitage with the quality of products that Kisan produces, or which are produced by Parle, if you talk about the fruit based drinks. So you would find that generally the cooperatives have the quality of the products which are produced by cooperatives is much inferior, and that is why generally there is low increase in demand. The demand does not increase in the manner it increases for a established large scale enterprise, for established brand like Parle. So they are not able to sell much just because of inferior quality of their product, and naturally less sales would mean less turnover and less chances of remaining viable for a long period of time. Then again, this is one major issue with the cooperatives. Many a times what happens is, if you form a cooperative, then many a times, because government wants people to form cooperatives, there are one reason is that when people come together to form cooperative, they become more risk prone. They become more they are more likely to take higher risk, and they become moderate risk takers, which is correlated with entrepreneurial success and success in the business venture that they undertake. So naturally the government wants that, and that is why they encourage the setting of cooperatives. And secondly is, whenever a group like a cooperative credit society takes loans from a bank or some other financing institution, they are more likely to pay it back. The risk of default is much less in a particular cooperative. The reason is that the people who are the members of the cooperative and who avail loans from the cooperative, they are basically part of the same community. They know each other well, and so they are less concerned about the rules and regulations and about the actions that might be taken if they do not repay the loan, but they are more concerned about preserving their own relationship with others, which might get spoiled, which might be endangered if they don't pay their loans on time. So people tend to pay their loans on time to the credit cooperative, and that is why the credit cooperative is able to repay the loan on time to the banks or the financial institutions from which they have availed these loans. So the risk of default is much less in societies like this, cooperative credit societies like this. And that is why, to encourage them, government also provides some subsidy amount. So if you are forming a cooperative, there are so many subsidies which the government might provide you, right? So I'll give you a crude example how this is basically being misused by some corrupt elements in the society. For example, if you set up a self-help group, and self-help group consists of around 7 to 20 members for a particular business, for a particular business venture. So they come together and form a group. So now what happens is, for example, self-help group, if they have to avail some loan from the bank, 20% of the amount is subsidized by the government, which means if you are, as a cooperative society or as a self-help group, availing a loan of rupees 10 lakh, you don't have to pay back rupees 2 lakh, because the 20% of the amount would be subsidized by the government. You only have to pay rupees 8 lakh and the interest on the remaining rupees 8 lakh, because rupees 2 lakh would be paid by the government. Now what will these kind of people do? They will apply for a loan of rupees 10 lakh, and then they will return rupees 8 lakh only. The remaining 2 lakh will remain with them, and they don't have to pay, because the remaining 2 lakh is being paid by the government as a subsidy. So they will gobble up this rupees 2 lakh which is being provided by the government as subsidies to encourage these cooperative societies and self-help groups. Now this basically is one reason why many times such self-help groups and such cooperative societies are formed, to gobble up the subsidy which is being provided by the government. And this corrupt intent has tarnished the image of the cooperative sector, and plus this is the reason why so many cooperatives have failed. They have deliberately actually failed so as to gobble up the subsidy amount. So this is one major problem with the cooperative sector here in India. And now let us talk about one last issue which is there with the cooperative sector in India: political interferences. And we talked about the sugar mills in Maharashtra. You talked about the urban cooperative bank here in Pithola in Champavat, wherever you go, you would find a lot of political interference and a lot of politicization. Why? Because you know that cooperatives are run democratically, which means there have got to be elections. The decisions are taken on the basis of majority, and the many a times the chief executive of the cooperative is someone who may or may not have any professional expertise to run a cooperative, but he is the one who has been elected by the members in the cooperative. So naturally it becomes a lucrative opportunity, it becomes a fertile ground for people, for budding politicians who want to contest elections to Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and the state legislatures. So they use it as a training ground. Apart from that, these kind of cooperatives have a lot of business, they have a lot of influence also, and that is why so many people who otherwise do not have any idea, they simply do not have any intent of serving the cooperative or serving the members of the cooperative, they become members of the cooperative and they contest elections for the top post in the cooperative and they get elected to these positions also. The intent is to just wield the influence that comes with being the executive head of the cooperative. So that is why there are so many political interferences which has marred the functioning of so many cooperatives in India. And this is why very recently, as far as the cooperative banks are concerned, RBI has taken this particular decision that within next 5 to 10 years the cooperative banks would also come under the purview of RBI and they will have to follow all the guidelines of RBI, which means 10 years down the line they would not be having an executive head which is elected by the members of the cooperative, but they will have to have executives who have sufficient background in banking. So this is one more issue with the cooperative sector, the political interferences. With this we have come to the end of this discussion, and now one more topic that we'll be discussing this particular unit is the small scale industries sector, which we'll be taking up in the next session.